Hey everybody, I'm Zee Garcia, and today I'm taking a look at an abstract city building game called Urbino. In this game, the players are going to be deploying different buildings to different spots in order to build up their districts and have higher influence there than their opponents. And you do this by manipulating two architect pawns sitting on the table. You have to be careful where they go, you have to be clever with your placement, and you want to make sure that you have more strength present than your opponent, but that you're not alone, because if you're completely alone in a district, you don't score anything at all. Let me give you a look at how it works. We'll come on back after that, and I'll tell you if I think it's a good abstract game. In the game, each player has three types of pieces. They have houses, palaces, and towers worth 1, 2, and 3 points respectively. And they are going to be attempting to make regions using these buildings where they outscore their opponent. But they have to make sure that both colors are mixed in that region, because if the region is by itself, meaning only one color is there, it does not score anything at all. And they are going to get a score equal to the number of points that that area is worth. So for example, if we have this area here, that one there, then we've got both colors connected orthogonally in that region, and the darker pieces have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. The lighter pieces are worth 2 points, and so the player playing these pieces will score 6 for that district, for that region. All right. So how do you actually put these pieces out, and how do you play? Well, the player playing the darker pieces is going to start. You're going to put one of these out anywhere they want to. This is an architect. And then the other player will put out the other one anywhere they want to. Then the original player decides if they want to go first or second, all right, depending on this positioning here. Let's say they want to go first. They will be able to add one of the buildings they've got to any spot where these two architects intersect, where they both see, basically. And so what that means is if this architect looks straight down this way and this one looks that way, then they intersect right there. And they intersect these two spaces between them because they can look right at each other. You could even do something like this, where this one looks straight down this way and this one looks diagonally that way, and meaning they intersect right there. All right? So there's quite a few places where they actually will see each other, but they cannot look through a building. And so if this building was already there, that spot is not open to placement because this one cannot see past the house built already in its way. And so that's basically it. So let's say we've got the two architects there. This player will go first. They are going to build one there. And then it'll be the other player's turn. And on their turn, they may move an architect if they want to, and then they'll place a building. So they could move here, let's say, and they're going to put a building where they both see right there. And then back to this player, who will move one of the architects if they so choose. So they might go there, and then they'll build a building right there, like so. Back to the other player, who'll move this one and build themselves one here. And so on. This goes back and forth with a couple of other rules that you need to keep in mind. And that is, towers and palaces cannot ever be built orthogonally next to each other, meaning vertically, horizontally next to each other. Like this is fine, corner to corner like that, but they don't count as being in the same district, so that's fine. And one more rule. You cannot have, so let's say we're back to the this player playing the darker pieces. They cannot, if they were able to make this happen here, let's say, yeah, they'll move this one there and add a piece there. That is not a legal placement, and the reason for that is because each district can only have one grouping of each player's colors. So that is not legal because that player is now present in that district twice. If they play it here, that's fine. All their buildings are together, the other player's buildings are together. But doing something like that is not legal. All right. This is going to continue with the board getting much tighter as the game goes on until, players are possibly need to pass, things like that. And once it is no longer possible for either player to go, then we're going to stop the game and score it up. So I'm going to go ahead and jump the game forward quite a bit, and then we'll go through some scoring. So that's it. I've gone ahead and progressed the game all the way to its conclusion, and now I am going to go ahead and score for both players. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, just to make it easier for myself, because the board does become a little bit visually cluttered, is remove anything that I know isn't going to score. So for example, this house over here is by itself, meaning it does not have the other color touching it, so it can go away. Same thing for this one out here. These two, same thing. These two, same thing. The rest is all districts. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the architects as well for visual clarity. So there's one district right here, touching corner to corner with this one, which is fine, but they're not combined. And so this one, the player with the lighter pieces is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these can go away, and this player will score those. Over here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so these will go away. And then down here, there's two districts. A little one right here, in which obviously the player the lighter pieces, the white pieces, will win. So this is removed. And then quite a big fight right here, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so these are removed, and that player loses. And there you have it. And so you would just add up your scores, and whoever has the most points, in this case, obviously the player playing these pieces, would be the winner of the game. And that's it. That's how you play. I really tend to enjoy abstract games. They usually bring a simplicity and an elegance to the table, matched with a great depth for strategy that few other games seem to be able to do. So, does Urbino do that? Well, sort of. Yes and no. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So let's kick it off with my target audience system here with thematic ties. The game really is abstract, so I'm not going to give it a plus or a minus here. But it does technically have a theme about city building, though it's so abstracted that it's solidly an abstract game. But that's what you are doing in the game. The aesthetics, the components, which is what it defaults to when it comes to an abstract game, seeing as to how there's really no artwork, I think they're very nice. The pieces, everything is wooden in the game, and those building pieces are nice and chunky. They feel good to manipulate, and they are very distinct. The three different heights are easy to spot, easy to manipulate. The architects, those are nice, and they definitely stand out from the rest of the pieces with their bright red color. And then the board itself is completely wooden and nice and solid. The game looks good on the table. And while there is a little visual, like I said in the overview, I think it gets a little bit cluttered as you are playing. That issue of discerning where one district ends and another one begins, I do think goes away with repeat plays. At first, you're going to have trouble making mistakes where you put a building down and then you'll notice, oh wait, I can't do that, because it connects these two districts, and those can't connect because I already had my color present in the other one. So there is that a little bit, but I'll talk about some of my problems with that a little bit later, okay? So I think aesthetics are good. The replayability, I also find it to be surprisingly good, because the game does have a bit of a learning curve, and manipulating those architects at first seems like a silly thing. When you start with an empty board, and you manipulate the architect, move him somewhere and put a building somewhere, you'll think, okay, I can do anything in this game. They see out of all directions, so there's tons of places where these two characters, quote unquote, meet. So this is like a non-choice. And then as soon as you're halfway through the game or so, and you realize, okay, they can't see through buildings, and that one architect is now stuck behind the building. So this is starting to get more tricky. You cannot move both of them. You can move one of them, and that's cool. And that's it. Again, it'll definitely sort of blossom into what those implications mean. I like it. I like the way that works. So the replayability is certainly there. Game length is pretty good. It's slightly long, but I'm not going to fault it for that, because I think this is not one of those abstract games. This is the kind of abstract game that certainly has a curve. It's not a quick burst of tactical maneuvering, which I do enjoy a lot in my abstract games. This one has a cadence to it that is not the same throughout the entire game. You'll start with a completely empty board. At first, it doesn't seem to matter that much what you do. Again, I'm no great tactician, but that's just what I've observed. And then as you are playing, you definitely start slowing down, noticing that you're running into problems, having one architect stranded somewhere. Your corners become problematic because it's harder to get in there. If you build a wall around a section, whether it be with just your own color or someone else's and your own, the other players and your own, then that becomes tricky to build inside of that wall. It's interesting, and there's a lot there, so it's going to slow down the game somewhat. At first, I was worried about this the first time I played. I think the tactics in it keep it from feeling too long. You'll be busy doing stuff, though it is a slightly longer game than usually I like my abstracts to be. Ease of play, fiddliness, if there's any weird design choices, anything like that. This is my biggest hit to the game, I think, and that is because where this game fails a little bit for me is in the elegance department. As I said a few minutes ago, I like abstract games because they are simple, rules-wise, they are elegant, and they are tactically rich. The ratio of how much you learn to how much you think is great. Very little to learn, lots to think about. I like that. Abstract games give me that. In this one, there's a lot to think about. There's also a few things you need to watch out for more than in most abstract games. You need to watch out about towers and, the palaces being next to each other. You need to watch out about districts running into each other. You need to watch out about having your color be present in a district more than once. It's not necessarily elegant. It's thematic, weirdly, right? But it's not elegant. And so my main hit against it is for that. I want to be able to teach an abstract game in a couple of minutes and have all the time we're spending on it be thinking time, not teaching time. This one's not quite that. And then lastly, tactics and strategy, and if there's any luck or randomness, there's none of that. And I even like the startup rule where you put out the two pawns and then the starting player actually chooses if they want to go first or second. Okay. I'm sure if I was, again, a great tactician, that would matter, but the rule's there, all right. But as far as the tactics themselves, I think they're good. I think the game is clever. I think it's interesting. I think you can have a strategy of building one really big one and have, as long as your opponent is present there, you should keep building that one up, right? It's going to be tricky to do that, but you can try to go for that, or you can build a bunch of smaller ones. If your opponent pops up somewhere, show up there, boom, build something bigger than they are, and maybe you can snipe a few points away from them. And you do that enough, you'll win the game. So I like the tactics, the reactionary feeling of the game, as well as leaving your opponent with a worse choice than the one you just had. If you can manage it, that's cool. So yeah, it's interesting. But overall, having said all of that, I think overall the game is a clever game. I think it's an engaging game. I do enjoy it. I think it's cool. But it's not one of my absolute favorite abstract games, and that's because it is not as, the rules are not as clean as I would like them to be. I'm sure they have to be there, the rules that are there, for the sake of balance, things like that. But I'll usually default to one that I can teach without having to give exceptions to, or learn exceptions if I'm learning it, to my opponent, It's like, you can do this, they look somewhere, you place a building, but you can't be this building, and you can't have your color there again, and all of those little things. I know this sounds like nitpicking, but an abstract game has very few moving parts anyway, so a couple of extra rules is a lot of extra rules when there are only a few, So that's overall my feeling. I do enjoy the game. I think the game does get better with more plays, so if it looks cool to you, I think you'll get your mileage out of it, because I do think it gets better. Some of the visual issues go away. Tactics enhance themselves with the passage of experience, with playing more games. But overall, it's not one I would show to a bunch of different new opponents. I might teach it to one person and play a lot with that one person. If you think you fall in that category, then give it a shot. I think it's interesting. It's well made. For me, this one scrapes into a seal of approval because I think it's interesting, it's engaging, it's well made, It's clever. It's just not as clean as I would like it to be. So seal of approval from me for Urbino. Again, if it looks good to you, check it out. That's it for me. I'm Zee Garcia. I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.